It was a Saturday morning. The sky was clear. The horses were grazing peacefully, and I had just stepped out to feed the dogs when I saw a man in a navy blue outfit walking up the dusty gravel road that led to the front gate of my ranch. At first glance, he looked like any regular cop. Dark shades, shiny badge, baton and all. But something about him was off. Real law enforcement officers don't come stomping up someone's private ranch road in combat boots with no backup or cruiser in sight. This guy was solo, and he was trying way too hard to look official. Then he did it. He knocked on my gate, actually banged on it, and shouted loud enough for the horses to jump. "Open up, HOA enforcement officer, you're in violation." HOA enforcement? On my private ranch? That was the exact moment I knew something shady was happening. I wasn't under any HOA. I'd made absolutely sure of that when I bought this property 15 years ago, specifically to avoid this kind of nonsense. Still, I didn't open the gate just yet. I stood there behind the barn wall, watching through the security camera monitor hooked up inside the tack room. The man was pacing, tugging at the heavy belt on his waist like it weighed 100 pounds. That belt had handcuffs, a baton, pepper spray, and a fake badge clipped to the front. From where I stood, I zoomed in on the badge with my camera. I smiled. "Big mistake, buddy. Because I'm not just a rancher. I'm not just some ex-farmer trying to live a quiet life out in Texas country. I'm the chief of police for the entire county. And this clown just showed up at my front gate pretending to be a cop." I walked back out, calm as ever, unlocked the main gate remotely with the push of a button, and watched him step in, thinking he had won. I let him walk 10 steps onto my land before I stepped into view. I said only 4 words. "You picked the wrong ranch." His jaw dropped when he recognized my face. I wasn't in uniform, but you don't forget a face you've probably seen on county billboards, TV news, and wanted posters. And right then, he knew something was wrong, but it was already too late. "Mind showing me some ID?" I asked with a calm smile, my arms crossed. He hesitated. I took 1 step forward, and he turned and ran, right into my backup patrol truck that had just rolled up behind him without a sound. As 2 of my deputies stepped out, weapons holstered but hands ready, the fake cop froze like a deer caught in headlights. He started stammering, but we didn't say a word yet. And just as we were about to question him, he pulled something from his pocket and screamed, "I know my rights," and tried to bolt into the woods. That's where we'll pick up in the next chapter. Now let's go back to how all of this even started. My name is Thomas Walker, but most folks call me Chief Walker or just Chief. I've been in law enforcement for 35 years and I've seen a lot. Bank robbers, cartels, insider corruption, even staged accidents. But I never thought I'd be dealing with fake HOA cops trying to run scams in my own backyard. I bought this ranch 15 years ago after retiring from my first big post as a detective in Austin. I wanted peace. I wanted my horses, my rescue dogs, my workshop, and a stretch of land where my grandkids could run free without some neighborhood committee telling me what color my barn should be. At first, everything was calm. My closest neighbor, Brian, lives about half a mile east. He's a retired firefighter with a bad back and a good heart. Then there's Carol, the widow who lives north of me. Her late husband was also a sheriff's deputy back in the day, so we've always looked out for each other. But 3 months ago, things started changing. A new HOA called Green Valley Community suddenly started posting notices on some of the properties around here, claiming they were expanding their residential jurisdiction. They tried it with Brian, then Carol. Both of them shut it down quickly. But then Carol called me one evening, clearly rattled. "Tom," she said, her voice shaking, "a man in uniform came to my door saying I owed HOA dues, but it didn't feel right." I paid her a visit, reviewed her footage, and sure enough, it was someone in a fake badge and a dollar store costume trying to look official. I notified the sheriff's office. They started looking into it, but there was no real lead yet. That's when I got angry. I set up extra security, cameras, motion lights, and even some pressure sensors at the entrance gate. If they came for me next, I wanted to be ready. And sure enough, this morning, they came. Now back to today. After we secured the fake officer and took his gear, we started going through his bag. No police ID. Just HOA papers with a forged seal that looked like it had been printed on a school printer. His walkie-talkie was just a toy. His baton was plastic. His badge? A modified mall cop badge with HOA compliance scratched onto it. But things took a strange turn when one of my deputies, Rachel, found a folded map tucked into his waistband. It wasn't just any map, it had marks. Red circles on properties all across the county, including my ranch, Brian's, Carol's, even some homes 5 miles away. And the words scrawled in black ink across the top? Target, non-compliant. We all looked at each other in disbelief. This wasn't just a prank. This was coordinated. I pulled Rachel aside. "Call in the state," I said. "We may have a ring." While we made arrangements to transport the man to the station for formal questioning, I noticed a silver SUV parked by the edge of the forest, barely visible. I motioned to my other deputy, Jamal. "We're not alone." He nodded. We started walking slowly toward the SUV. But before we got halfway there, the SUV roared to life and sped off, tires spitting gravel and dust into the morning air. We didn't chase, but now I knew this went deeper, and someone didn't want us finding out just how far, so I made a call. "Activate the emergency drone team, I want eyes in the sky." And just as the drone took off into the sky, my phone buzzed. It was Brian. He was whispering, frantic. "Tom, there's a man outside my barn, dressed like that same guy. He's holding a clipboard and talking to someone on a headset. I think I'm being watched." And just like that, we had another target in play. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know how far this story's reaching. And always remember, stay kind, stay alert, and never underestimate the power of knowing your rights. I didn't waste a second. As soon as Brian whispered those words, "I think I'm being watched," I barked into my radio. "Unit 6, shift focus to Walker East Sector. Brian's Ranch. Go silent. No sirens." Jamal, my sharpest deputy, hopped into his patrol truck and disappeared down the dirt road in a trail of quiet dust. Meanwhile, I jumped into my SUV and punched in the surveillance feed from Brian's property. I had helped him install cameras after Carol's scare, and they synced to my system as backup. What I saw chilled me to the bone. A second fake officer, dressed almost exactly like the first one. Same navy shirt, same HOA enforcement, stitched onto a patch, same crooked badge. Only this guy was bulkier and carried what looked like a clipboard, but it wasn't paper on it. It was a mounted tablet. He was walking around Brian's barn, taking pictures and muttering into a Bluetooth earpiece. Brian stayed hidden inside, watching from the attic window. Smart man. I radioed Rachel. "This isn't random. They're casing properties with the same pattern. Back at my ranch, the first suspect, let's call him Fake Cop 1, was already handcuffed and sweating bullets in the backseat of my deputy's cruiser. We hadn't interrogated him yet, but I had a feeling this was a much bigger scam than we thought, and now that another fake had shown up at Brian's, I wasn't taking any chances. By the time I got to Brian's, Jamal had already parked at the back end of the property, approaching from the woods with stealth. I rolled up behind the trees on the opposite side and stepped out, silent. Jamal made eye contact with me and nodded. We had him cornered. The fake officer was still snooping around, now pointing at the solar panels Brian had installed a few months ago. He was filming them with his phone. That's when I stepped out and yelled, "Hey, step away from the barn, hands where I can see them." He froze, but then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. "I was just doing an inspection," he said, calmly turning toward me. "Your friend here is in violation of Green Valley HOA policies regarding external structures exceeding regulation height." I nearly lost it. "Green Valley HOA doesn't even cover this region," I said sharply. "And you're trespassing. Identify yourself, now." But instead of obeying, he reached into his vest, too fast, and both Jamal and I pulled our weapons in an instant. "Don't," I yelled. "Slow, hands out, now." Out came a business card. He tossed it onto the ground with a smirk. "Fine, call my supervisor." Jamal cuffed him before he could even blink. The guy resisted, but Jamal's built like a linebacker. It was over in seconds. We took his phone, the tablet, and his gear, and something in his bag made my stomach drop. It was a thick black binder with GPS coordinates, HOA bylaws, most of which were completely made up, and forged signatures from homeowners I personally knew. He even had printed out citations, fake HOA tickets, with official-looking barcodes and amounts ranging from $500 to $3,500. This wasn't petty. This was fraud. Full-blown organized fraud. We brought him back to the station to join his partner in separate holding rooms. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed at my office, going over every note, every photo, every log we had collected. My gut told me something more dangerous was coming, and I was right. The next morning, I got a call from Carol. Her voice was trembling. "Chief, I found something taped to my back door." I asked her to take a photo and send it to me. When I opened the message, I nearly dropped my coffee. It was a red envelope. Inside, typed in bold capital letters, it read, "Comply or be condemned. This is your final warning." I immediately dispatched 2 units to her property and headed there myself. Carol greeted me at the door, her hands shaking. "I think they were here last night. My dog didn't stop barking for hours." I checked the footage. 2 hooded figures, no uniforms this time, just masks, gloves, and flashlights. They walked the perimeter, circled the barn, and left the envelope taped to her back porch. They never tried to enter, but they made sure to look right into the cameras, like they wanted us to know they were watching. That changed everything. I called in a full investigation unit and escalated it to a federal report. We now had organized impersonators, forged government documents, attempted extortion, property stalking, and what appeared to be intimidation tactics against the elderly. This was no longer about fake HOAs. This was a network. Later that evening, while reviewing the surveillance stills from Carol's place, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Rachel. "You need to come outside. We have something." I stepped into the parking lot of the station and froze. Parked right outside, bold and unbothered, was a black SUV with the words, "Green Valley Enforcement Unit," slapped across the side. 3 more people stepped out. 2 men, 1 woman, all wearing the same fake uniforms. Only this time, they were recording us. They had a camera crew and a megaphone. One of the men shouted, "We're here to issue a violation to the Chief of Police for non-compliance with community codes. This is now public record." I laughed in disbelief. These people had lost their minds. But then I noticed something terrifying. The crowd, about a dozen people, had started gathering on the sidewalk, watching, recording, and some of them were cheering for the fake HOA team. That's when I realized they weren't just criminals. They were running a scam on a massive scale. And some people actually believed it was real. Before I could order an arrest, one of the men stepped toward the gate holding something shiny. At first, I thought it was a fake badge. Then I realized it wasn't a badge. It was a taser. He lifted it and fired toward Rachel. The crackling sound of the taser fired through the air, slicing through the stunned silence like a bolt of lightning. Rachel barely had time to react, but thank God for her instincts. She sidestepped just as the prongs zipped past her shoulder and struck the patrol car behind her, sparking on the metal frame. The crowd gasped. Some ducked. Others kept filming, their phones locked onto the chaos unfolding in front of the police department. I didn't even yell. I just moved. In 2 long strides, I tackled the man who fired the taser, pinning him to the asphalt before he could lift it again. Rachel swept in, weapon drawn, covering the 2 others who had frozen in place like mannequins at a yard sale. Jamal and 2 more deputies rushed out the front door, weapons ready but held low. "Down! Hands on your head!" I roared, my knee pressed into the back of the guy with the taser. The man under me started whining. "We have a right. This is civil enforcement." "Tell that to the felony charges you're about to face," I snapped. Within 2 minutes, all 3 were cuffed and disarmed. We recovered 2 more tasers, pepper spray, a clipboard of HOA citations, and a duffel bag filled with fake IDs, logos, and video equipment. But that wasn't the worst part. As Rachel searched the female suspect's bag, she pulled out a small tablet, and what she found inside hit us all hard. It contained live camera feeds from multiple private properties, not just ours, not just Carol's, dozens, backyards, driveways, barns, bedrooms,